Welcome to MACC Talk, a Middle Tennessee podcast from Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm Tanya Murtis, Deputy Director at the MACC. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at U.S. Pest Protection. U.S. Pest Protection, helping you enjoy peace of mind for your home and family.
Thank you, Tanya, and welcome everyone to MACC Talk. I'm your host, John Pitcher. We like to think of the MACC as a cultural town square where we encourage everyone to be their creative best. So, Tanya, what sort of creative things have you been up to this week?
Well, with the change in temperature, it sure feels like fall's in the air. And here at the MACC, I've been working on some fall seasonal classes. And that's been a lot of fun. Everything from decorating ornaments to creating jewelry Christmas trees to decorating Christmas cookies. My creativity has just gone crazy.
Wow. Are you also being that creative at home? Are you decorating? Are you doing stuff? You've got a Halloween party coming up, don't you?
I do. And I have so many decorations that I'm going to have it's going to be a family thing. We're all going to gather together and decorate. It's putting us in the spirit of fall for sure. Okay,
that's wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and introduce today's guest. He's the songwriter and Army veteran J.T. Cooper. A Tennessee native, J.T. fought in the 1993 Battle of Mogadishu in Somalia. The conflict was famously portrayed in the 2001 film Black Hawk Down. Following his military service, J.T. turned to songwriting to help him deal with his PTSD. In 2018, he founded the nonprofit group Warrior Rounds, a healing arts program that pairs military veterans with songwriters. The songwriters help the veterans tell their stories, a crucial step in the healing process. JT will be the keynote speaker at the MACC's Boots and Barbecue fundraiser on October 19th. The fundraiser supports the MACC's Healing Arts program for military veterans. JT, welcome to MACC Talk.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, well, I thought I might start off this podcast with a little bit of a quiz. I want to ask you a question. What does J.T. Cooper have in common with the famous World War I soldier Alvin York?
Well, we're from the same hometown.
Yeah, that's it.
I grew up, I graduated from his school that is the only one of the only two state-funded high schools in the state of Tennessee. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So the Tennessee School for the Blind and York Agricultural Institute in Jamestown, Tennessee are the only two schools that are fully funded by the state of Tennessee, and it's written into the Constitution of the state of Tennessee that it'll be paid for forever and a day, because that was the one thing the legislature offered Alvin York anything he wanted when he came back from World War I, and as the most decorated soldier of World War I. And he said he wanted a school for the Hill kids because he wanted them to have an education that he didn't have.
Right. And of course, he was a household name at one time.
That's right.
All around the country. My parents knew him because Gary Cooper played him in a movie.
Yep. And he's got places named after him, like the Alvin C. York Medical VA Center in Murfreesboro is Alvin C. York. And he was pretty famous.
One of our great Americans. Well, tell me a little bit about your upbringing growing up in Fentress County.
Well, I was raised on a farm. We raised chickens for Tyson, and I was a member of the JROTC, the junior ROTC at York Institute, and I would get to go down and do a ceremony and lay a wreath and present the colors at Alvin's grave every year on the anniversary of his birthday, and I got to meet Miss Gracie a time or two. So I had a background. My grandfather on my mom's side was in Pearl Harbor and was given a Purple Heart for his injuries when his ship went down. My other grandfather on my Cooper side was in the Rhine over in the European area of operations in World War II and received a Bronze Star. So between those two and Alvin York, I kind of felt like I was always destined to be in the military. And
Well, let me
follow
ask
that
you,
path.
I understand, did you go to Tennessee Tech for a few semesters?
I went, when I graduated high school, I was 17, and I had a scholarship to go to Tennessee Tech, and I got down there, and it wasn't for me, but my dad wouldn't sign for me to join the military, so I
you were
was
17,
enrolled.
right? Yeah.
I was enrolled because I wasn't 18. So, long story short, I got myself put on academic probation so he couldn't make me go back, and I knew he wasn't going to let me sit at home and play video games like kids want to do today. I was going to have to do something, and my goal was to join the military.
So you wanted to join the military. So you went into a recruiting office, and did you want to go to the Army specifically, or what led you in that direction?
I wanted to be an airborne ranger, and ultimately a Special Forces Green Beret. Ever since I watched John Wayne in the movie Green Beret, that was one of the things I wanted to do, and I got short-circuited on that by getting hurt in Somalia. So I couldn't do some of the physical tasks that I would need to do anymore to join Special Forces, and I knew that I wasn't going to do well serving in a line unit the rest of my life. So.
We're speaking with Army veteran and musician J.T. Cooper about his military service and his work as a healing arts songwriter. We'll be back after this important message.
Creativity involves breaking out of established patterns in order to look at things in a different way. The staff at U.S. Pest Protection, local professionals protecting families and their homes from harmful pests, share this outlook with the staff at Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center. Creativity consists of rearranging what we know in order to find out what we do not know. To think creatively, we must be able to look freshly at what we normally take for granted. U.S. Pest Protection is rated the #1 family-owned pest control and termite exterminator in Middle Tennessee, serving Sumner County for 40 years. For information, visit them at uspest.com.
We're back with Army veteran and musician J.T. Cooper. Well, you mentioned Somalia. 1993, that was a peacekeeping mission.
Yeah, okay.
Could you set that up for us? Tell us a little bit about what that was, because I know a lot of us maybe know it from Hollywood, but tell us a little bit about that.
I didn't go in as I went in as QRF, a quick reaction force, and so I wasn't shaking hands and kissing babies, and the UN was doing that. What we were there for was they sent us. My unit got sent. We got put on alert, and we went 2 weeks after the Pakistanis got killed, handing out food. And when they finally started shooting at the UN peacekeepers, they sent us in. They had been holding us because they didn't want to spend our time in country until they actually started. They knew it would take a while for them to get brave enough to start shooting at Americans. So when they shot the Pakistanis, they put us on a plane, and our job wasn't peacekeeping as much as we were there to go in and protect the peacekeepers.
Right. Well, sort of to set it up a bit more, that, as I understand it, Somalia at that time, I remember it from some of the controversies about whether or not the Defense Department was going to provide armor or not to the troops, which to this day still makes me shake my head. But it was kind of Somalia at that time was kind of a hellhole without a government. It was run by warlords, and there was widespread famine. So even, George H.W. Bush, wanted to do something about it. He wanted to provide, some sort of relief. The UN was there, and you guys ended up there in the summer of '93, right, to support the UN, and I guess to try to provide some kind of semblance of normalcy.
Well, we were trying to, demonstrate to them that warlords wasn't going to be how that wasn't going to be how that government needed to be set up.
Right. Well, people were starving before that.
And
the
warlords
the people who were suffering were the people.
And the warlords were hijacking the aid workers that were sent in with food, and that food was a currency. and food was, just as useful as money in their way of life.
Yeah. Well, there was one warlord there. I guess his name was Farah Aidid.
Muhammad Farah Aidid,
who was especially notorious, and I guess he managed to arm his insurgents, his thugs, pretty heavily. I mean, they had automatic weapons and grenade launchers, all things that you got to come into contact with. Tell me about that famous, fateful day in October 1993 when Black Hawk helicopters were shot down. You guys had to go in and get them out, right?
Yeah, we the average life expectancy of a American soldier in a mountain environment is 5 to 6 seconds. Because they can shoot you from any window, any building. When you're in a city fighting, they can snipe from the roof, they can snipe from windows, they can set up, IEDs and all that stuff. And there was a section of town that we weren't, quote unquote, authorized to go into because it was such a mess that if we went into that area, we didn't have the equipment to get out alive. And so we had requested from the Defense Department on 3 different occasions, the generals in charge had requested armored vehicles to go in there and get them out. And basically it come down to the fact that, if you guys are too scared to go get them or to go work that area, then we'll send the Rangers. Well, the Rangers showed up, and the first Black Hawk got shot down like on the 15th of September. And it was more in a rural area, but it was their tactical training on how to do it. So when the next helicopter got shot down, they did it over the city, where they knew that they were going to be able to ambush us from every corner as we came in to try to get them, and it became a baited ambush.
Right, it was bait for that helicopter.
Helicopter down was the bait to draw us into a bigger conflict in their area, in their home, where it was their backyard, where they knew where all the hiding holes were and where they had all their caches of weapons and everything else, which we wanted to clean out, but we wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't cost as many American lives.
So you guys didn't have Abrams tanks, so you had
we
to
didn't
you
have
had
tanks.
to
We
go
didn't
in.
have Bradleys.
You had to go in with those UN personnel carriers, right?
We had open 5 tons and light skinned Humvees, and so we ended up procuring some Malaysian APCs. By the end of the night, we procured some Malaysian APCs, but the problem was I don't speak Malaysian, and there's no street signs in Mogadishu, so we don't know how to drive these vehicles. So we're trying to ride in vehicles and trust that whoever's telling them where to go is leading them to the right place. But
and these vehicles are white, aren't they? With little UN
big, bright, white
symbols
UN.
on the UN symbols on them. So you're advertising.
It's a target.
You're advertising. Here we come get us.
Yep. Here we go. Well, I ended up on one of the 2. There were 3 APCs that ended up getting blown up that night, and I was on one of them. And so, yeah.
And
that become a little bit of a yuck.
Yeah.
So.
And you were right by the door, right?
Well, I was.
You had the M60.
Yeah, I had the door handle in my hand, and the AK-47 rounds were bouncing off the side of it, and it was tink, 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 and the RPGs were coming and hitting the side of it, and blowing us from one side of the vehicle to the other one with the impact. And then I'm sitting there knowing that in a few minutes the lieutenant's going to tell me to get out. Sure enough, we had an RPG that hit the vehicle, and nobody could hear anything, but I looked over at him and I saw his mouth, and he was just like, "Get out."
Right.
So here I opened the door and stepped out.
Yeah. So you guys had to endure that combat for the next, how long?
14 to 17 hours.
Okay, so that's like an eternity then, right?
Oh yeah, it wasn't the 2-hour movie.
Yeah. We're speaking with Army veteran and musician J.T. Cooper about his military service and his work as a healing arts songwriter. We'll be back after this important message.
U.S. Pest Protection reminds us that art lessons can introduce students to problem-solving techniques that can help them see the world in new ways. The MACC offers multiple art classes for students pre-K to 12th grade, along with adult classes. Register today at monthavenarts.org. This message is a courtesy of U.S. Pest Protection, serving Middle Tennessee for 40 years. Find them at uspest.com.
We're back with Army veteran and musician J.T. Cooper. So once this is all said and done, you were injured, right?
I was.
But some of your buddies weren't so lucky, as I understand it. So you must have been feeling, and I'm not sure what you would have been feeling more terrible about at that moment.
Yeah, my roommate Jimmy Martin was killed, and my teammate Cornell Houston was killed, and actually got Cornell. We got him patched up enough that we got him to Germany, and he died 2 days later from an infection. And there wasn't anything I could have done about that, but that's one of those things that the military's done a really good job of training people in the golden hour. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, the golden hour.
I have heard of it. Tell us about it, though.
Getting medical attention to troops or medical attention. It started with warriors on the battlefield, but getting that first hour is the most important. Getting them medical aid rendered within that first hour gives them a higher effectiveness or a higher probability of living through that situation. And they trained us, and Cornell had what we call a second chest wound, where he took a bullet through the chest and his lungs kept filling up with blood, but you didn't want him to aspirate, so we had to bandage it on 3 sides. We bandaged the hole and on 3 sides, and you left one side open so you could burp. And when the lung would fill up with blood, you would burp the blood out of it, but you wouldn't let him suck straight air into his lung. It made it so that it would blow up or collapse. We didn't want his lungs collapsing, but we had to keep draining the blood out of his lungs. And at one point that job fell to me because I was out of ammo, and I had ran out of ammo and ended up on the rescue vehicle that come to rescue us. I mean, we went to rescue the Rangers, and I ended up being one of the ones that were rescued because my vehicle got blown up. And when they loaded him in the new vehicle, and we weren't going to sit on the dead and the wounded, so I sat down and they handed me Cornell, and it became my job to burp his wound until we got back to the compound, and to talk to him and make sure he knew he wasn't alone.
Right.
And here you got this guy that can't hardly breathe trying to tell me about his wife and kids, and telling me his wife and kids and all this. And I'm trying to tell him, just be quiet. I'll find them. I'll talk to them. Just quit talking. Just save your breath. Say, I got this. You're gonna make it. You can tell him yourself. And I'm trying to do everything I can. And he just kept saying, tell him. And I was like, okay. And when we got back to the compound, they started coming around with the litters. Things you carry the bodies on. Mm-hmm. And they took Cornell out of my hands and put him on a litter. And, I'm 21 years old, just sitting there and I needed a minute. And I didn't know at that time, but I was in shock. I didn't know the terms. I'm sitting there and here's this white boy from Tennessee. And I'm looking down and I've got blood all over my legs and I got my little desert camo boots on. And I'm like, at one point I was thinking, I'm going to have to get new boots because I ain't going to be able to clean those up. And the next thing I know, they're grabbing my feet and grabbing my arms and trying to drag me out of the vehicle like I was wounded. And I was like, what are you doing? They're like, you're bleeding. We got to get you checked out. And I was like, you can't tell the difference between the blood of a white boy from Tennessee and a black man from Mobile, Alabama. I said, that ain't my blood. That's Cornell's. Get off me. And I walked out of that vehicle and walked into the compound. But to this day, that's still one of those moments that change a person forever, because I learned a lot more in one night and one ride than most people learn in a lifetime.
Yeah. You mentioned Pearl Harbor earlier in our conversation, and that reminds me, my wife had an uncle in Mississippi who was a high school principal, and she did not know this until she somewhat recently read his obit, that when he was 17 years old, he was in the 1st Marine Division that landed on Guadalcanal in August 1942. So he never mentioned it. His entire life, he could never talk about that. And that was some hardcore fighting there in the Solomons. And I'm fascinated listening to you because you're talking about things that a lot of the guys from that generation, they never talk about it.
Well, I've learned that.
I'm just wondering, how do you cope? What did you do when you got back? Because you're alive and these other guys are not, and that, for a lot of people, that's the hard thing.
Well, the survivor guilt was bad, but one of the things that I felt responsible for was my mama asked me a question when I got back home. My mama said, "Why aren't you Timmy anymore?" And basically I was like, if I can't explain that to me, I can't explain it to you. Mm-hmm. So one of the goals in my life became trying to find a way to articulate it. And as I've done that over the years, I've realized that me telling my stories help other people feel safe enough to tell theirs. Mm-hmm. And, having... people come up to me and say, I wish my dad would have got to talk to you because he was from Vietnam and would never talk about it. He said, and we didn't understand why. We thought he hated us. We thought he didn't love us. But he just didn't know how to communicate. And the military teaches us to shoot, move, and communicate, especially the infantry. You shoot, you move and tell somebody where you're going, and you communicate where you're moving to, and that way you don't get shot in the butt. Mm-hmm. Army, they teach us shoot, move, and communicate. That's the way you live through battle. And when we come home, a lot of us forget to move and we forget to communicate. And we just come back and sit somewhere and we watch paint dry and try to deal with it by ourselves because we feel like we've got to be Rambo. And for me, learning how to articulate that became part of my healing process. But at the end of the day, I've learned that I get more out of helping other people articulate it. That's what we do at Warrior Rounds is we help tell the story of the soldier one song at a time. One soldier's story, one warrior story, one song at a time.
We're speaking with Army veteran and musician J.T. Cooper about his military service and his work as a healing arts songwriter. We'll be back after this important message.
U.S. Pest Protection reminds us arts education is an essential part of a balanced education. It helps students develop creativity, critical thinking skills, and problem solving. U.S. Pest Protection serving Sumner County for 40 years. For more information, find them at uspest.com.
We're back with Army veteran and musician J.T. Cooper. And so you found some initial healing through music, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
writing poetry.
That was
That's
how
what
I ended
you
up
do.
in Nashville.
Uh-huh.
that's how I ended up in Nashville. In 1997, I ended up in Nashville, and I was still on the trail of trying to figure out how to articulate that so I could explain to my mom. But, one of the things that I tell people, and I try to, when I have time to sit down and explain it, is we do a lesser job today than they even did in the Old West. We do a lesser job today than they did in the Bible. When Jesus called the disciples, the first thing he did was change their names because they were a new creation. They were something different. Mm-hmm. And he wanted the world to see you as a new creation.
Yeah.
In the Old West, you're American Indian. When a boy became a warrior, they changed his name because the whole community is now supposed to see this child as different. Mm-hmm. He wasn't Little Turtle anymore. He was Lone Wolf or Warrior Wolf or whatever. But that meant the community sees them as different. Well, when we come back from war today, the community may see us as different, but they think we're just broken. They don't see our new names and that we're a warrior. They just say there's something off about that guy. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of times that's the case, but it's our responsibility to shoot, move, and communicate. And if we're not communicating, so many times I hear guys say, well, I don't talk to civilians because they just won't understand. Well, they don't understand because you don't talk to them. And if you may not talk to them because you don't know how to talk to them, but part of the goal is to learn how to describe your experience. Because if we don't tell civilians what it was like going through that, then how do they understand what we're going through?
Right.
How do we get that nod of, acknowledgement that we're seeking so bad? We want to be acknowledged for what we've been through, but yet we can't explain what we've been through to a point, not to just tell a bloody war story, but to show why we're different and why I'm not Timmy anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're doing that through an organization that you founded called Warrior Rounds. Tell us about that. Tell us what Warrior Rounds is and what you do.
So Warrior Rounds, there's a lot of people that come in and they do these retreats with veterans and they try to help them write a song.
Mm-hmm. So you match these veterans with songwriters, right? And you know lots of professional Nashville songwriters.
I've been here. I've made a lot of battle buddies.
Yeah.
And the military teaches us how to make battle buddies, but we come home and we don't want battle buddies that aren't the ones that we went to war with. But they taught us how to make friends, and they taught us how to make battle buddies for the next step in life. So I've got a lot of songwriter battle buddies. Mm-hmm. So we have these guys come in, we do a retreat, and I match a warrior with a songwriter. I'll do an introduction and explain the process and go into a little bit of my story to encourage them of how to open up. I make sure my songwriters all know that we're not there trying to write a hit song. We're there trying to write their song. And whatever they want to write a song about, we're going to write a song about it. Mm-hmm. Whether it's about their family. I tell them, we didn't pick the day we were born. And by the grace of God, we're not going to pick the day we die. Mm-hmm. We're not going to commit suicide. Mm-hmm. So what we try to do is write the dash in the middle. And we want people, I tell the soldiers, I was like, whatever you want to tell people with your dash, and you want to make your life, what you want your life to represent, what your dash is, that's what we want to help you write. But the difference in what we try to do is we bring in a video crew, and there's this moment of passion when you help write a song for someone and they become very passionate about that moment. Well, you can't ever get that back. Mm-hmm. So we bring in a video crew and we interview the songwriter and the veteran together when they're done that day. And then what we do is take those videos of the interviews and we go back and edit them. and tweak them to make sure that the veteran they're not performers. We try to make sure they don't feel silly. But then we go to somewhere like the Hard Rock Cafe, and we do a live show and have them invite their friends and family to come in, and we play their interview, and then we world debut their song, and we videotape the live performance, and then we take their interview and their live performance and put them together, and that becomes a segment, and that segment becomes theirs to keep forever.
Wow. Now, have some of these veterans who've participated in Warrior Rounds, who've had songs written, do they contact you later to talk to you about what their feelings are now? What do they tell you?
I got a guy that calls me. We wrote this song, and basically I said, "What do you want to write a song about?" And he said, "I don't want to write a song." I said, "Well, why would you come to a songwriting retreat if you don't want to write a song?" He said, "Because my wife told me I had to." And I said, "Well, I've got one of those too, so let's write about that." And he's like, "Well," he said, I got one for you." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Let's write a song that helps me keep the gun out of my mouth the next time. When I'm contemplating suicide, let's write a song that does that."
Okay.
And so we wrote that song. And just every little whip stitch, he'll call me and say, "Hey, man, listen to my song today. Things got better."
So that's the definition of a hit song, right?
That's right. If it touches one person.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people all the time, man. If it touches one person. That guy that calls me, and Jamie calls me, at least once or twice every quarter. And he'll be like, "Man, had to get our song out today.
Right.
But it got me through it. I appreciate you. You'll never know how much I appreciate you." And here's a guy that didn't want to write a song. His wife made him come, but now it's the song that gets him through some days.
Right. Okay.
And that's just a powerful thing for me, because it's also proving that I've came back, and I may not have a school built in my name, but I'm still on mission. Mm-hmm. And Alvin C. York stayed on mission.
Right. Okay. Well, JT, you're going to be our keynote speaker for our Boots and Barbecue fundraiser that supports healing arts here at Monthaven. You're going to have Warrior Rounds there. What's the message that you're hoping to get across this October 19th, aside from the fact that you're dedicated enough to veterans that you're missing the Tennessee-Alabama game?
Everybody's got a war story.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a war story. What I want people to take away from Saturday, if I could say anything, is just to talk to one another. Mm-hmm. Have more conversations like this one, where you help somebody see something that maybe they had never understood, or see something that they had never even contemplated before, because you've lived things that other people haven't lived. And it just,
Yeah. Well, JT Cooper, thank you for joining us. It's been an honor.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
You've been listening to MACC Talk from Monthaven Arts and Cultural Center. Our mission is to educate, elevate, and encourage our community through the transformative power of the arts. If you're interested in transforming your creative life, check out our website at monthavenarts.org. Our guest today was Army veteran and musician JT Cooper. Our podcast music was written by Nashville composer Christina Spinay. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.